Starting an MMO is super exciting, but also quite daunting. It feels awesome when you make progress. It sucks when you make a wrong choice and lose a ton of time. Your time. How can we avoid this? Well, keep watching. If you're starting out in ESO, this video is going to help you out a lot. But don't worry, I'm not going to tell you exactly which route to take and what to do, but I can tell you how to prep and pack for the journey. Hiya, this is Maya, you're watching Ninja Pulse, and welcome to my guide for new players in the Elder Scrolls Online, freshly updated for subclassing. I have maxed out over 30 characters in this game, so I know what I'm talking about, and I'm gonna show you what I and other veterans do to save time with a new character. The stuff we wish we'd known when we first started. Let's start by covering character creation, game settings, XP, skill lines, and skill points. First, take your time with character creation. This may not seem like a time saver, but getting it right the first time will save you time later. You can buy change tokens to go back and fix things, but it will cost you. Alliance doesn't matter at all unless you already have friends in ESO and you want to group up for open world PvP. Then your character must be the same alliance as theirs. Class doesn't really matter that much either. They can all do what you need them to do, and later you'll be able to subclass and add whatever other skill lines you want from other classes. So just pick one whose theme appeals to you. Arcanists are all about runes, green laser beams, and tentacles. Dragon Knights wield fire and poison in close-up combat, like a battle mage. Necromancers summon corpses and fling skulls at their enemies. Nightblades use darkness and speed to gain the upper hand. Sorcerers conjure demons and lightning bolts. Templars channel the power of the sun and the divines. Wardens command beasts and frost magic to fight alongside them. As for race, again, do whatever you like. There are some meta choices like Nord for tanking, Dark Elf or Khajiit for damage, but you're not gonna make the game harder by picking something else. Here are the passives for each race. Some nice little bonuses that can make you a little more effective, but what matters is your enjoyment, especially early on. So make sure you're happy with the look and vibe of your character. You can always make more. And don't forget to spam that voice button to check that they also sound the way you want them to. So many players forget this and waste money on a change token to fix it down the line. There are also some very illustrious voice actors in this game, many of whom did player character voices too. So make sure you check this out. Just take your time, really. Then once you're ready, start the tutorial, or skip it if you've done it before. Before you do anything else, there are some settings tweaks that instantly make the game better to play. On console, the controls on UI are a bit different, but on PC, hit escape and go to settings, gameplay, and the combat section. Turn on the custom colors and crank up the brightness of the enemy color to make it much easier to see dangerous AoEs and stuff you shouldn't stand in. You can also change it to something like bright pink or bright blue, so it's easier to see. In story content, this won't matter so much, and it might look a little odd, but once you start doing dungeons and trials, this simple fix will be transformative. Then scroll down a little further and switch Quick Cast Ground abilities on. This lets you place your own AoEs immediately with one press, rather than having to double-click to cast and confirm every time. Seriously, you'll thank me later. This and the enemy AoEs are two things that the game really should do by default. You can also head to the camera settings and set third-person field of view to maximum, giving you a much better view of the battlefield, and set the horizontal position to 0 if you want to keep the camera centered instead of sliding around awkwardly when you zoom or open menus. In the combat section, you can make your bars permanently visible and show resource values, which is very handy. You can also toggle damage numbers on and off, giving you a much better sense of your incoming and outgoing damage and how effective your attacks are. Super useful, but some players find it intrusive and only toggle it on in specific situations. There are also accessibility features, nameplates over players and NPCs, a walk toggle so you can slow down and take in the world, and the option to show player account names rather than character names by default, which makes it easier to see who you're dealing with because you always see the player's identity rather than some random character name. Implement all or none of these tweaks, whatever you like, but it's good to know that they're there. You can also use add-ons to do a lot of these things, but that's a whole other topic. If you want a list of recommended add-ons, you can join our Discord, the Ninja Pulse Discord, and find a channel with all that information. But for now, if you're new, let's move on to the tutorial. Go slow and pay attention! This game likes to get out of your way and will not give you many tips later on, so this is it. But also sit back and enjoy the story. The game throws you right in with some pretty major characters right off the bat. As soon as you escape your cell in Cold Harbor, you get a weapon. The type you get will depend on the class you have picked, but for now, it doesn't matter. You'll get a second weapon type in the next room, and a little later, you'll have a chance to collect all of them. Next, the game will make you fight several Daedra, and your screen will go blue at the edges while the game teaches you some basic combat moves before letting you move on. Light attacks. A basic attack which costs nothing but deals decent damage, generates ultimate, and activates weapon enchantments. Heavy attacks. Slower and clunkier than light attacks, these also restore resources. Block, which mitigates incoming damage. You can use this to reduce the impact of big hits or avoid knockdowns from charged attacks, often shown by yellow lines radiating around the enemy. Interrupt. If an enemy has red radiating lines, this means you can bash them to stop whatever they're casting. Later on, you'll have access to ranged interrupts as well, but for now, a bash will do nicely. Dodge roll. While blocking reduces damage, dodging avoids it entirely. In the early game, you won't find many things that are that dangerous, but it's good to get this stuff down sooner rather than later. If you dislike double tap to dodge, that can be changed in settings, gameplay. By the way, if you ever need a reminder of these attacks and what exactly they do, or pretty much anything else in the game, you can open up the in-game help menu by pressing F1 by default on PC. They overhauled this tutorial section a while back, and it's actually really good. You can search for almost anything and get a decent little capsule description. Even veteran players use this to remind ourselves of certain things now and again. Back to the tutorial! After killing these demo Daedra, you will also have leveled up. If you haven't chosen yet, you'll want to decide whether to make your character stamina or magicka based. Don't worry, again, it doesn't make that much of a difference and you can easily change it later. ESO is not one of those RPGs where your choices are very limiting and you can end up scrapping your character a few hours in because you realized you've gone wrong. ESO is much more freeform, for better or for worse. Your choices aren't that restrictive. Everything except class is reversible, and these days with subclassing, even that is pretty open-ended. So stamina versus magicka doesn't matter a whole lot. You'll be using both stamina and magicka abilities either way, but your primary resource will affect which abilities you can afford to spam over and over, also known as your spammable. It's worth saying that initially, many of the base abilities you'll be using will cost magicka, but as you level them up, some will switch to become stamina abilities. Also, later on in the game, you'll find that many of the most powerful spammables cost stamina, at least as of this recording. But ESO is always evolving, and like I said, it's cheap and easy to respec your primary resource anytime you want. So for now, just make sure you put all your attributes into one resource, magicka or stamina. At this point in the tutorial, you won't be able to see your racial passives. They'll appear later, but here they are again. Most of the races do have a bonus that leans towards max magicka or stamina, all except Dunmer and Khajiit, which grant equal amounts of both. But if you've chosen one of the other races, then it makes sense to spec your character in that direction. If the race you've chosen offers neither or both in equal amounts, then it doesn't make any difference which you choose. I wouldn't recommend putting anything into health. You're in very little danger in the early game, and the way to stay alive is through armor and healing, not a high health pool. If you're planning on making a tank, then eventually you'll want some points in health, but leave that until later. For now, You'll progress faster and more easily if you spec for damage, so pick either Magicka or Stamina as your resource and commit to it for now. Once you get out in the open, there's a sneaking tutorial. You can skip it, but like I said, this game does not take you by the hand and teach you stuff very often, so I'd make the most of the opportunity. I'd also take the opportunity to listen to the NPC's dialogue and ask them all the questions you can. It will help set the scene, clarify what the hell is going on, and let's face it, they're awesome to listen to. Lyris is voiced by Jennifer Hale, one of the greatest and most prolific video game voice actors out there. And Cadwell is voiced by John Cleese himself, of Monty Python fame, absolute legends, and lovely performances that really elevate the storytelling. ESO leans heavily on its amazing voice cast for this, so it's worth taking it all in. The rest of the Cold Harbor tutorial contains lockpicking, some cool story beats, more combat practice, and a sky shard. All pretty straightforward. Once you're out of the Cold Harbor tutorial, you're free to go anywhere. With just a couple of exceptions, nowhere in the entire game world is close to you. That can be pretty overwhelming. My advice is to start with your alliance zones, beginning with the starter island where you end up after your escape. You can jump around and do zone stories in any order you want, but the alliance's story will nudge you from one zone to the next in a logical order, and the overall narrative will make way more sense that way. Same with all the chapter expansions and DLC zones. They don't need to be done in any particular order, but you may as well complete them in order of release, since that's how they've been created. Whatever you do as a new character, there are 3 things you need: XP, skill lines, and skill points. If you've played the single-player Elder Scrolls games, you might expect to improve by repetition, level up bow by shooting stuff, or become more athletic by sprinting everywhere. ESO doesn't work that way. It has a more old-school XP system. When you kill something, complete a quest, or perform certain actions, you gain XP. That XP not only goes towards advancing your level, it also goes towards any abilities on your active bar in the moment the XP arrives, and to any weapon or armor types you have equipped. This is important to know. Start working this system early. It could save you a lot of grind later on. Check your skills menu, K by default, and you should already see 2 weapon skill lines unlocked from the weapons you looted after escaping your cell in Cold Harbor. If you only see 1, then equip the other weapon from your inventory and find a little critter somewhere in the world. There are always some nearby. The way it works is that killing anything with a weapon equipped unlocks the skill line for that weapon type. So every character can use every weapon type. You just need to get hold of each one and kill something. That includes critters like bugs, frogs, and snakes, which have no hit points and die to a single light attack. So every time you find a new weapon type, even if you don't intend to use it yet, it's a good idea to equip each type and zap a critter with it, just to get everything unlocked nice and early. Same with armor. You'll pick up odd pieces during the tutorial, from quests and from random drops. Equipping 3 or more pieces of the same type, light, medium, or heavy, will permanently unlock that skill line. And even if you haven't unlocked it yet, the skill line will advance in the background, so long as you're wearing at least 1 piece of that armor weight. So, feel free to use a mix of armor types in the beginning, but prioritize the gear you actually want to use. Almost all damage dealers eventually opt for predominantly medium armor for its desirable damage stats, especially if it's a stamina character. But light armor is also excellent for a Magicka character, especially early on. Also, the passives matter, so don't just spend your new skill points on shiny active abilities. Sometimes the passives are more useful, so take a moment to read through them in your class, weapon, and armor skill lines. It's also worth mentioning gear enchantments. The game will almost always drop medium armor pieces with a stamina enchantment, light pieces with a Magicka enchantment, and heavy pieces with a health enchantment. Obviously, we want whichever enchantment goes with our chosen attribute, since that makes our attacks stronger, but we won't be able to re-enchant every piece of gear, especially if you're new. You don't have the materials yet, and you'll be swapping gear constantly as new pieces drop that are slightly better than the ones you're wearing. Speaking of which, if you're in a guild or you have friends in ESO that can help you with this, it's well worth getting a set of crafted gear while you're leveling. You can get exactly the weight you want, and all from the same set for maximum power, with the right enchantments and all with the training trait, which speeds up your XP gain. Many players have multiple sets of training gear like this at level 10, level 30 and level 40. Once their character hits 50, they throw it back in the bank and save it for their next new character. Smart move! But if you're totally new, you may have to wait until you've joined a guild, a Discord server, or have made some contacts in-game. Don't worry, it's not a game changer, just convenient. Before we move on, it's worth mentioning that you can level weapon and armor skill lines without keeping them equipped. Once you've killed something with a weapon type equipped and put on 3 pieces of the same armor weight at the same time, you can just slot the active abilities from those skill lines, and as long as they're on your active bar when the XP arrives, you'll be ranking up both the ability itself and the skill line it came from. You'll rank it up faster if you also have the gear equipped. And unfortunately, there's only one skill for each armor type, and you must be level 22 in that armor type before you can slot it. But the point is that you can always level stuff passively in the background, just by slotting 1 or 2 skills on your front bar and letting it increase over time. Or you can load up your back bar with stuff you want to level, and every time you go to hand in a quest or are about to finish the final boss in a random daily dungeon, you can swap to their back bar and let all the juicy XP go right where you want it, without it really affecting your setup or its effectiveness. So that's XP, skills, and gear. What about skill lines? Let's forget subclassing for a minute. We'll circle back to that one later. You've got your class skill lines, and we've seen how to pick up all the weapon and armor stuff, so what about the other skill lines you'll need later, like Fighter's Guild, Mage's Guild, and Undaunted? Well, the latter 2 advance in the background even before you join, but Fighter's Guild does not, so I suggest joining that one early by visiting the guild hall in the nearest city. Quick chat with the steward, and you're done. You don't have to do anything else. Now you remember, every undead and Daedra you kill on your travels will advance your rank, and by the time you actually need the skill line, you'll already be rank 5 or 6 without even trying. Much better than having to grind it out later. You can join Mages and Undaunted too, but like I said, your rank will advance in the background even before you join, so there's no rush. Pro tip: anytime you want to remind yourself how to advance a skill line, just mouse over the progress bar and the game will literally tell you how it works. With most of them, it's just a case of slotting the skills and earning XP, but some of them work differently, and I think many players could use a reminder of exactly how they work. That takes care of skill lines. What about XP? Well, ESO is actually very generous with XP and gold, so you can pretty much do whatever you want and you will advance. Quests, exploration, antiquities, PvP. You can hit a grind spot if you're in a big hurry, but if you're new and there's literally an entire world to explore, maybe just go and do something interesting. Grinding is a great way to ruin a new game and condition your brain against it. But if you do want to mix a bit of XP boosting in with the fun stuff, I can recommend at least doing a random normal dungeon every day or most days, once you've hit level 10. Great for XP, skill points, loot, and learning how to play without too much pressure. Plus, they're fun and the environments are super cool. Random battlegrounds are also good. The main quest is another great choice, since it is literally designed as an introduction to the world and the setting, and is extra generous with its rewards. It's very easy even at low levels, so it's a good way to wrap your fingers around the controls and explore what your character can do. Plus, it's mostly solo instanced, so you can go at your own pace. Still, most of the main story quests are nice and quick. The plot is easy to follow, it's pretty much a retread of the Oblivion story, but it's the characters that make it interesting. Obviously, it's base game content, and the folks at ZOS have come a long way in 11 years, so it's not as slick as the newest stuff, but it totally holds up and works great both as an intro to ESO and as a quick leveling strat. Couple of things to note. First, whenever you complete a story quest with the Prophet and his companions, you have to exit the harborage and head towards a town. Then, as you reach the outskirts, the Prophet will automatically appear and start the next quest. You can use this trick to force the story to progress. It's a bit weird, but it's a holdover from when those story beats were level dependent. The other point is that once the story takes you back to Cold Harbor, things get a bit more challenging, and the quest rewards don't come as thick and fast. This zone serves as a grand conclusion to the base game story, and isn't geared towards new players the way the earlier quests are. If this is what you're after, I'd stop once you've got 10 skill points from the main story and have completed the Council of the 5 Companions quest. This stuff is all solo, but most activities can be done with a buddy. Groups of 2 get 10% more XP from kills, plus you can go twice as fast and take down bigger enemies more easily. And if you find a good guild, that can be incredibly helpful in finding people to port you around early on, crafting you some gear, and offering tips. Joining a guild might seem intimidating when you're new, but it's a really smart move. Many of the more active casual guilds will even advertise in zone chats. And I heard about this amazing guild called Ninja Pulls, full of awesome people and the greatest guildmaster ever. But seriously, one of the greatest things about ESO is its community, so don't miss out on that part of it. Okay, so that explains all the basic stuff in a very compressed way. But there are a few more details we should touch on: mount speed, subclassing, and scribing. Mount speed is simple. At level 10, you get a free mount, and you can visit a stable every day, there's one in each town, to upgrade the speed, which affects all mounts that character might use. At level 10, you also get access to Cyrodiil, the open world PvP zone. As soon as you can, I recommend doing the Cyrodiil tutorial. Just press L by default to open up the menu, select the low-level campaign, and press E to enter. Even if you have zero interest in PvP, do it anyway. It takes 3 minutes, gets you 3 skill points, and advances you to rank 3 in both Alliance War skill lines. That unlocks Vigor, a great self-heal, and more importantly, the continuous attack passive for 30% faster mount speed. That is transformative. Just go get it, and thank me later. Oh, and don't skip the siege training or you won't hit rank 3. Subclassing is a new system that lets you trade your original class skill lines for any of the other class skill lines in the game. You must keep at least one of your original lines, and you cannot run more than one from any other class. So for example, a Nightblade could grab a Templar line and an Arcanist line, but it cannot have 2 Templar lines. But you don't have to worry about the details yet. The system is unavailable until you hit level 50 anyway, and you'll have to level them before you can use them, so there's no rush. But once you're level 50, if you want to check out the subclassing system, head to Evermore in Bankorai, or Dune in Reaper's March, or Riften in the Rift, and talk to this NPC, Buttride Hunding. Also, watch our video guide on subclassing if you want a more complete overview. The system is a little complicated at first, but you'll wrap your head around it soon enough. It's a similar story with scribing. This is like a version of spellcrafting, where you can collect special abilities called grimoires. These are like your regular abilities, and customize them with scripts, which you also collect by completing the scribing story and doing dailies. Again, it's quite simple to use once you get used to it, but can seem a little overwhelming to new players, especially when you're dealing with all the other stuff like leveling up, finding gear, subclassing, and so on. The good news is that you don't need it when you're new, but it is worth collecting eventually. And once again, we made a video which breaks down the whole thing. Phew! I think that covers it. ESO is an 11-year-old MMO at this point, so yeah, there is an enormous amount of stuff to do. The trick is to chill and go one step at a time. Tutorial, Then get going with the story and pay attention to what I said about armor and weapons, skill lines, skill points, experience, mount speed. And once you've got all that down, then you can focus on subclassing and scribing and whatever else. But honestly, just relax, enjoy the story and the community. And like I said, you can always open up the in-game help menu by pressing F1 if you need a reminder, or join my Discord and ask for tips. I hope this was helpful. If so, please consider supporting the channel or come by our Twitch and hang out with us there. I hope these tips will save you a ton of time and get your ESO adventure off to a smooth start. Good luck with your new characters. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in Tamriel.